Alrighty. Welcome back to another episode of What's On, but this time around we have made some awesome changes and improvements that I'll talk about in a second. If you're new here, let me explain how this works, and even if you've been here since day one, I recommend listening to this little rundown because some improvements have been made. Essentially, in this series, I take your guys' country music suggestions and talk about them. This series is aimed around shining light on newer, smaller artists that aren't getting the recognition they deserve. For example, Thomas Rhett came out with new music, but those won't be in consideration for this series because everyone has already heard them. If you have some music that fits the criteria, I say criteria in air quotations because it's very lenient, and you want it featured in a future episode, join the Discord, the link is in the description, and drop a link to the song in the What's On Suggestions channel. Now for some bigger news, especially as of late, more and more suggestions have been coming in, which is fantastic. The only downside to this is I can't include every song in each video. Fear not, however, for Joe and Nathan have both made playlists on Spotify and Apple that you can download and listen to, featuring every suggestion from each month. If it's the current month, they'll add it periodically, but nevertheless, if you want to hear what's floating around or just want some new music, be sure to download those playlists. The links are in the description as well as the links to my Instagram and Discord. As I was saying a moment ago, I can't go through every single song in each video, so from now on, I'm going to be featuring my top 10 favorite tracks from the What's On playlist from each month. This video is quite late, but today is February's suggestions, and the next What's On will be March's suggestions, and so on. I hope that made sense and wasn't too long. Regardless, let's hop right into the video, and in no particular order, we're going to kick off this episode with On the Run by Warren Zeiders. On the Run is a simple outlaw song that's easy to enjoy. The most accurate way I can describe this song is it sounds like Luke Combs covering a Colter Wall song. Just the songwriting combined with the production feels very Western Colter Wall, but in my opinion, Warren's voice at times is eerily similar to Luke Combs. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just funny how similar it can be at times. Overall, this is just a haunting track, creepy whistling with a lonely guitar, rough around every edge, and if you like yourself some Western outlaw tunes, I can't imagine you wouldn't like this here track. Next up, I have Grass That Isn't Green by J.R. Carroll.
Time moves slow when you ain't bursting at the seams.
This is one that was suggested way back in preparation for the very first episode of What's On, if I remember correctly. Regardless, it's an old suggestion, but it always stood out to me as a puzzle I couldn't solve. Something about it kept me crawling back for more, but I didn't want to discuss it until I had a proper opinion. Fast forward to some point in February and it was re-requested, and from there I was determined to figure out just what about this song fascinates me so much and why, at least for me, it's so enigmatic. Beginning with the sound, the word I would use is atmospheric. This is achieved by the layering of the different instruments and just how they were mixed. There's this eerie, gorgeous steel guitar that floats around throughout just in the background, very distant and reverbed. Then you tack on the super crisp and sharp vocals and acoustic guitars, and you begin to hear the depth this song carries. There's levels to this song, and though they may not stick out upon the first listen, take some of those key aspects away and go figure the product just wouldn't feel as complete. I know that sounds like common sense, but just hear me out. But past the witty mix and just overall clever production choices, the lyrics were the side of the song that held me back from reviewing it because I couldn't crack the code. It's incredibly well written, and I knew that from the start. I was just missing a piece. I couldn't figure out what the grass in the song is, so I actually messaged JR on Instagram and he responded, explaining how the grass that isn't green is the relationship on the whole. It's not a part of the relationship or a piece of a character that scared this girl away from him, but it was the thought of the relationship. Once I got that piece, the puzzle really came together and lyrics started chaining together, and long story short, I'm incredibly hooked. The song itself is very retrospective, but this emotion is accomplished even without the lyrics, which I think is a real testament to the artistic construction, and yeah, you can probably tell by the sheer amount of time I've spent on this track. I freaking love it. Next up, I got Mama Sway by Bo Armstrong.
You roll like an ocean.
This song is just a smooth, waltzy groove, which makes sense given the fact it's literally about slow dancing around the house. It's in 6/8 time, so naturally it has that swing, or in this case, sway. The song is about. Bo's vocals are just super tender and delicate. Tone-wise, his vocals are comparable to someone like Jaden Hamilton. The use of a piano as the bass layer makes this track feel very rough, cottage-style, homemade. This song just feels like hardwood floors and smudgy windows. Overall, it's just a calming track. It's got a super catchy chorus and some very subtle but very nice harmonies running throughout. Overall, a great suggestion and one of my favorites from this bunch of favorites. Up next, I got Livin' Too Long by Zephaniah OHora.
I feel like I've been living too long.
Living Too Long is, as the genre on Apple Music would suggest, traditional country. I didn't know that was an option you could choose when uploading music to Apple. I thought streaming platforms would make you choose from the bigger, more umbrella terms, but seeing how Randy Travis's Rise and Shine album is labeled as urban cowboy, I shouldn't be surprised traditional country is there either. Nevertheless, this is a hoot of a time, and though there are definitely some flaws, I had to include it simply because it's just a jam. If I wasn't listening to it through my headphones on my laptop, I would probably feel the need to get up and move a little. This track is just Zephaniah saying he's seen it all before, every day's feeling like the same, he's been living too long. But rather than being down in the dumps, he approaches the idea comedically. The big strength this song carries is the instrumental. It's super detailed and smooth with mute guitar licks everywhere, some pianos layered underneath a wobbly electric that provides a really cool almost chime sound. It's a great fast-paced jam. I just find Zephaniah's vocals underwhelming. It's not to say they're bad, I just think he gets severely outperformed by the instrumental. Also, there's one thing I can't get out of my head. I don't know if it's good or not, but Zephaniah sounds a lot like Santa from the 1964 claymation Rudolph movie. Hopefully you guys hear it and I'm not just crazy, but I can't stop thinking about that. On to one of the more rocking songs of the video, I have Salt by Taylor Austin Dye.
Is it gonna be red or wine or whiskey?
Salt is a very fat, saturated mix that has a great rock and roll sound. Everything about this song is just big. The crashing drums, the bellowing guitars, the echoing organs, it's all just there and making its mark. I really like the organs subtly in the back, providing a real backbone for the rest of the mix to do its thing. Also, the organs add this dark, almost gothic vibe, and it just works really well. Lastly, the vocals are done to a T. Taylor basically does what Zephaniah failed to do, and that's pierce through the instrumental. You'll hear me talk about this idea in a later video, but this is an example of the artist competing against the instrumental. One is constantly trying to outdo the other. Bruno Mars talked about this idea during an interview with Apple Music, and that plays as a perfect bridge for me to talk about Silk Sonic for a second. Are y'all kidding me? If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you'll know I'm a big Bruno fan, so to get a joined album between him and Anderson .Paak is basically a dream come true. They've gone for this complete 70s style with their music, like the lead single, Leave the Door Open, and they've translated that throwback feel to their social media, their Grammy performance, which even though the Grammys are washed up, that performance was nuts. I could go on for far too long, so for your sake, let's just move on to the next track. And that next track is Beside You by Dustbowl Revival.
Tell me what I gotta do, sweetheart, to get through to you.
Where do I begin with this track? Firstly, I must say the lead vocalist of the group definitely has an interesting tone to his voice. I wasn't huge on it at first, but it quickly grew on me as this track progressed, and boy did it have a long time to do so given the 6.5 minute runtime this track holds underneath it. However, before you let that hefty runtime scare you away, it doesn't feel like 6.5 minutes, which is a real testament to the arrangement, keeping it fresh. I think a big piece of the puzzle that keeps it feeling new are the horns. They're introduced very slowly, which gives them enough time to build and carry the instrumentals over without feeling dragged. I think horns are criminally underused in basically all genres of music. I'd love to see more horns in the mainstream anywhere, really. There's some nice falsetto harmonies that are sweet, but at least personally, there's no section or melody in this song that really sticks. My other issue is the drums. The whole track just generally has the garage-esque production quality, which works for everything but the drums and specifically the cymbals. I just think they sit too high in the mix and crash over top of the vocals too much, resulting in an awkward blend at times. However, with all that in mind, I still really enjoyed this track, as you can see by me including it in the video, and I think it's worth giving a listen. From there, we go into Sinners in a Small Town by Carter Faith.
Around here, what goes around don't come back around.
This song is painfully gorgeous. Gorgeous because of how beautifully produced, written, and delivered the song is, but painful due to the harsh subject matter the song addresses. Before diving into the content of the song, from a musical standpoint, like I said, this track is gorgeous. A good chunk of that beauty is brought by Carter's vocals. The delicate nature in which she delivers her lines is so powerful, because despite being for the majority of the track stripped back and tight, she doesn't allow that to limit her range by jumping into her falsetto really skillfully. A specific example of this fluidness that is just raw talent is in the chorus when she says the word ashes.
Ashes, ashes.
Tone-wise, to give you an idea, she's almost like a vocal blend between Carly Pearce and Ashley Campbell. I also really like how they use the guitar as percussion throughout. Not the only percussion, but it really helps emphasize the rawness of this track. Raw, I think, is the word that best describes this track overall. And now to the deeper stuff, the content and subject matter. This song is a really heartbreaking anthem about young girls being taken advantage of by the talk of the town, prom king high school football players. It's Carter saying how they just do what they want and get away with it because of how tight-knit the town is. No one's gonna call the cops on the sheriff's only son. You can scream out loud, but it wouldn't make a sound. No one judges sinners in a small town. It's hard to relate to directly, obviously being a dude, but I don't think Carter could have possibly created a song related to this idea in a more effective yet appealing manner, and I really enjoyed just every aspect of this one. Coming in next, I have Paper Heart by Juna and Joey.
Paper heart.
I had never heard of Juna and Joey, but they're best known for their covers, specifically of Lewis Capaldi's Someone You Loved, which has now amassed over 1.3 million views. Regardless, they're making original music professionally now, and this is my first taste of the duo. It's a very bright pop country song about your typical teenage breakup. I really enjoyed the skippy rhythm it had, not awkward as much as it was just rollicking. I think it's safe to say Juna is the girl and Joey is the guy. Assuming that's correct, I really enjoyed Juna's voice. It was super sharp and accurate. Her runs were very technical. Just overall, her performance was very technical. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Joey. With all due respect, his harmonies just felt lazy, and I don't mean for this to be as harsh as it's going to come off, but his voice was just like a stain on the track that takes away from Juna's performance. I mean, realistically speaking, there were times where he wasn't even harmonizing, he was just singing an octave below her. His voice is just a little too loud to be a harmony as well, and I think it should have been a solo from Juna, but either way, I don't want you to be deterred from listening because if you're into bright music, if you like some acoustic pop country, I think this is right up your alley. And I mean, the duo have not much original music out, so I'm intrigued to see where they go next. Second to last for today, I have Santa Ana by Waylon Payne.
And the Santa Ana winds.
Lush is the word that comes to mind when talking about this track. It's fluttering, beautiful, and lush. From the dull acoustics to the bright string sections to the harmonicas and rather high vocals, it all comes together to create a very lush piece of music. It almost feels like some classical jazz in a way. All in all, it feels like a nice warm breeze on a spring day. It feels like the Santa Ana winds blowing past you. I also just love the cadence he uses whenever he says Santa Ana winds. It just has such a warm, jovial feel to it. Basically everything about this song I love. It's so simple, just saying I've been gone, but the Santa Ana winds will bring me back to you one day, and I'll happily wait until that day comes. It's super sweet, wholesome, and you should definitely give it a listen. Alright, last one for the day. Gonna stir the pot a little bit. I have Cross Country by Breland. Before you ask, yes, this is the Don't Touch My Truck guy, and yes, it does break almost all of the rules in the What's On series, but he's labeled as a country artist, he collaborates and works within the country music scene, and someone suggested this song, and I just wanted to talk for a moment about Breland and why I'm fascinated. Specifically with Cross Country, it is much, much more country than anything else he's put out. There's nothing blatantly not country other than the auto-tune on his vocals, which I find can be a little much at times, but in the grand scheme of things, at least for me, it's not a deal breaker. I find the song Cross Country very interesting. It's obviously him telling the tale of his life, and I can respect how real some of the lyrics are. Overall, it's a very feel-good beer self-anthem, which in most situations I don't really care for. But in this case, I just see some decent songwriting and genuine passion and originality as an artist that made this song stick out with me. Writing about going to Atlanta with 1,000 songs that'll never sell, landing a hit and moving to Hollywood because you're told it's great out there. I just find it fascinating, and upon some surface level research, Breland as a guy just seems super likable and at least has the right idea. I've seen one quick interview with him and he mentioned the struggles of blending genres with country. He talks about what I've said before, where you're not going to get a great pop country song by combining mediocre pop elements with mediocre country elements. He talks about how he's actively looking for ways to creatively and respectfully bend the genre, and I don't know, maybe I'm looking too deep even though I haven't looked much, but as far as country artists blowing up with a TikTok hit, especially one as blatantly trap as Breland, he stands out. He's caught my eye, and I'm really looking forward to what he does in the future. He's got a great attitude towards music and life in general, but he's an easy guy to get behind. So do I think you're gonna like Cross Country if you fall asleep cuddling a Merle Haggard vinyl? No. But if you're open to other genres and fusion of genres, I think you'll really enjoy this track and Breland as a person. I'm excited to see where he goes. Alrighty, that'll do it for today. This has been a longer video, but I like this format of taking my favorites from the month and talking about them like this. I think it helps put the best music being suggested on display. Again, massive thanks to Nathan and Joe who are making this process 10 times easier. Links to both the Spotify and Apple playlists will be in the description. Also in the description, you'll find links to every song featured in this video, as well as my Instagram and Discord. Be sure to give each track a listen and comment your thoughts. This video is well long enough, so I won't hold you here for any longer. Until next time, have a great day.